There are certain lives that become famous because they conquered lands. There are certain names that survive because they built empires, wrote books, commanded armies, discovered something, invented something, or ruled for a few years and left their mark on one part of history. But then there is a life that changed the way people worship, the way they speak, the way they marry, the way they trade, the way they forgive, the way they bury their dead, the way they raise their children, the way they treat their neighbors, the way they understand mercy, justice, patience, courage, family, leadership, wealth, poverty, suffering, death, and the life to come. That life is the life of Muhammad ibn Abdullah. Peace and blessings be upon him. When the month of Rabiul Awal comes, many Muslims remember the birth of the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him. The exact date of his birth has been discussed by scholars, and Muslims should not turn a matter of historical difference into an argument that destroys brotherhood. What is beyond dispute is that Allah sent Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, as a mercy to the worlds, and that his life changed humanity in a way very few human lives ever have. So today, do not listen only as someone hearing a historical story. Listen as someone whose own life is connected to his message. You pray because he taught us how to pray. You know the words of the Quran because he carried that revelation to the people. You know what halal and haram mean because he explained the guidance of Allah. You know about Jannah, Jahannam, accountability, mercy, tawbah, patience, charity, the rights of parents, the rights of spouses, the rights of children, and the rights of the weak because Allah taught these things through his messenger. And sometimes we say, I love the Prophet, but our love remains only on the tongue. We mention him, but we do not know his character. We send blessings upon him, but we do not control our anger. We admire his mercy, but we refuse to forgive. We speak about his Sunnah, but we neglect honesty in business, kindness at home, and humility in disagreement. If Rabiul Awal is going to mean something in your life, then let it be more than a date. Let it be a mirror. Let it make you ask, if I claim to love Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, what has that love changed in me? That is the question. Because the greatness of his life is not only that millions followed him. The greatness of his life is that when people truly followed him, they became different. Harsh hearts became soft. Enemies became brothers. Addicts to pride became servants of Allah. People who buried daughters alive became fathers who protected and honored them. Tribes that killed each other for generations stood together in prayer. Men who measured worth by wealth learned that the most honorable in the sight of Allah are those with the greatest taqwa. A society that was fractured by revenge was taught justice, forgiveness, charity, responsibility, and worship. So as we reflect on the life of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, let us take 7 lessons, not 7 facts to memorize, but 7 lessons to live. Because the best way to honor the messenger is not to turn him into a distant historical figure. It is to allow his example to correct the way we live today. Lesson 1. Real greatness begins with servitude to Allah. One of the biggest problems in the world is that people are constantly trying to become important. We want to be noticed. We want to be respected. We want people to know our names. We want a title before our name, a position after our name, followers on a screen, praise from people, influence, power, or recognition. We are taught that greatness means being above others. But look at the greatest man who walked this earth. His greatness did not begin with people serving him. It began with him serving Allah. Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, did not stand before the world and say, "Worship me." He stood before the world and said, "Worship Allah alone." He did not gather people around his personality for his own ego. He called people to their Creator. He did not use revelation to build a palace for himself. He lived simply. He did not demand that people bow before him. In fact, he taught them that worship belongs only to Allah. This is the first reason his life becomes so important for us. He teaches us what success actually means. You can have people clapping for you and still be a failure in the sight of Allah. You can have no one clapping for you and still be among the successful. You can be unknown on earth and known in the heavens. You can be popular with people and empty inside. You can be ignored by society and beloved to Allah. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, showed us that human dignity is not found in controlling others. It is found in surrendering yourself to the one who created you. Think about this carefully. Every human being is a servant of something. If you do not serve Allah, you will still serve something. You may serve money. You may serve public opinion. You may serve your desires. You may serve your image. You may serve your anger. You may serve your ego. You may spend your life asking, "What will people say?" instead of asking, "What will Allah say about what I am doing?" That is slavery to creation. The message of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, came to free the human being from that slavery. When he said there is no deity worthy of worship except Allah, that statement was not small. It shook the foundations of false power. It told the rich man that his money did not make him divine. It told the tribal chief that his tribe did not make him superior. It told the idol worshipper that stone could not control destiny. It told the oppressed that the one oppressing them was still only a human being and would stand before Allah. This is why Tawheed changes everything. It changes how you see fear. If Allah is your Lord, people are not your lords. It changes how you see provision. If Allah is your provider, then you do not sell your principles for money. It changes how you see hardship. If Allah is your Lord, pain is not meaningless. It changes how you see death. If Allah is your Lord, the grave is not the end. And this is one of the greatest lessons of the Prophet's life. He taught us to put Allah at the center. Today, many of us have put ourselves at the center. We ask, what do I want? What do I feel? What do I deserve? What makes me look good? What makes me comfortable? The believer must ask a deeper question. What pleases Allah? Do not misunderstand this. Islam does not teach you to hate yourself. It teaches you not to worship yourself. It does not teach you to ignore your needs. It teaches you to organize your needs according to guidance. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was a husband, a father, a leader, a teacher, a friend, a neighbor, a commander, and a member of society. He lived a full human life, but every role was under his servitude to Allah. When he was happy, he remembered Allah. When he was hurt, he turned to Allah. When victory came, he humbled himself before Allah. When people rejected him, he remained faithful to Allah. When he had authority, he did not behave as though he owned the people. He knew that authority was a trust. That is something every Muslim needs to learn, especially in an age when people think status gives permission to become arrogant. If Allah gives you wealth, you are still a servant. If Allah gives you education, you are still a servant. If Allah gives you beauty, you are still a servant. If Allah gives you influence, you are still a servant. If Allah gives you children, you are still a servant. If Allah gives you a company, a team, a family, or a position, you are still a servant. And the beautiful thing is that when you accept servitude to Allah, you stop needing to be worshipped by people. Some people are emotionally exhausted because they are secretly demanding worship from others. They need everyone to agree with them. They need everyone to praise them. They need everyone to validate them. They need everyone to notice their sacrifice. If someone forgets to thank them, they become angry. If someone disagrees with them, they feel attacked. If someone else receives attention, they feel threatened. Why? Because the ego has become hungry. The Prophet's life teaches you to feed the soul and discipline the ego. Your worth is not determined by how many people admire you. Your worth is connected to your relationship with Allah. So if you want to honor the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, begin here. Ask yourself, what is sitting at the center of my life? Is it Allah or is it my ego? Is it obedience or is it appearance? Is it sincerity or is it applause? Is it truth or is it convenience? The man who changed the world did not begin by asking the world to revolve around him. He began by calling the world back to Allah. And that is where your own transformation must begin too. Lesson 2. Character is part of the message. Sometimes Muslims speak about Islam as though religion is only found in the masjid. We pray, we fast, we read Quran, we make dua, and these are essential. But then we leave the masjid and become rude to people. We lie in business, we insult our spouse, we ignore our parents, we humiliate our children, we mistreat employees, we gossip about relatives, we become aggressive in traffic, we cheat someone and then say, Alhamdulillah, business is good. This is not the example of the Prophet. Peace and blessings be upon him. One of the most powerful things about his life is that his character carried the message everywhere. Before revelation, his people knew him as trustworthy. Imagine that. Even before they accepted his prophethood, they knew his honesty. The message did not come from a man famous for deception. It came from a man whose integrity was already recognized. This should make every Muslim uncomfortable in a useful way. If people know that you pray but cannot trust your word, something is wrong. If people know that you fast but fear your temper, something is wrong. If people see Islamic words on your social media but your family sees cruelty at home, something is wrong. If you talk about Sunnah but your employees feel abused, something is wrong. If you speak beautifully about mercy but become merciless whenever your ego is challenged, something is wrong. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, did not only deliver Islam with speeches, he delivered it with behavior. He taught people that strength does not mean uncontrolled anger. He taught that the strong person is the one who controls himself when angry. That teaching alone could repair thousands of homes if we took it seriously. How many marriages are damaged because someone thinks anger gives them authority? How many children are wounded because a parent never learned emotional control? How many families stop speaking because one person refuses to say, I was wrong? How many friendships end because pride becomes more important than mercy? We often admire the Prophet's patience from a distance, but we do not practice patience with the person sitting in our own home. That is where the Sunnah must become real. It is easy to speak gently to strangers who praise you. Can you speak gently to someone who irritates you? It is easy to smile in public. Can you be kind when you are tired? It is easy to forgive someone you do not care about. Can you forgive someone whose words genuinely hurt you? It is easy to be generous when people are watching. Can you be generous when no one will know? Character is revealed in the places where performance ends. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, lived under enormous pressure. He was mocked, rejected, insulted, accused, boycotted, attacked, and betrayed. He buried loved ones. He experienced hunger. He faced war. He carried the responsibility of a community. Yet he did not become a man of uncontrolled cruelty. That matters. Many people justify bad behavior by saying, "You do not know what I have been through." Pain explains behavior, but it does not automatically excuse injustice. The Prophet went through more than most of us can imagine, yet his trials refined him rather than turning him into someone who harmed everyone around him. That is a lesson. Your pain must not become permission to become oppressive. Maybe someone betrayed you. Do not become a betrayer. Maybe someone lied to you. Do not become a liar. Maybe someone humiliated you. Do not build your life around humiliating others. Maybe you grew up in a harsh home. Do not automatically reproduce that harshness with your children. Maybe no one apologized to you. Learn to apologize when you are wrong. This is part of prophetic character. And notice something else. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was not weak. Mercy did not mean weakness. Forgiveness did not mean he had no boundaries. Kindness did not mean he allowed injustice to spread without resistance. Islamic character is balanced. You can be gentle without being naive. You can forgive without returning to abuse. You can be patient without approving wrongdoing. You can be humble without allowing people to treat you as worthless. You can be strong without becoming cruel. The Prophet taught this balance. There were moments for forgiveness and moments for justice. Moments for silence and moments for speaking. Moments for patience and moments for action. Real character is not simply being nice. Real character means responding in the way most pleasing to Allah. Sometimes that response is gentle. Sometimes that response is firm. but it should not come from ego. That is the difference. If your firmness is about revenge, check your heart. If your silence is about cowardice, check your heart. If your generosity is about being praised, check your heart. If your religious advice is about feeling superior, check your heart. The prophetic way was deeply connected to sincerity. This is why love for Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, cannot remain emotional only. Love creates imitation. If you love his honesty, become more honest. If you love his patience, practice patience. If you love his generosity, give. If you love his humility, stop needing to win every argument. If you love his mercy, show mercy. If you love his courage, speak truth with wisdom. If you love his worship, improve your worship. Do not only ask, how many times did I send salawat today? Also ask, how many times did I control my tongue because I remembered the character of the Prophet? Both matter. The world does not only need Muslims who can explain Islam, it needs Muslims whose conduct makes people see what Islam does to a human being. Imagine if every Muslim business owner became known for honesty. Imagine if every Muslim parent became known for mercy and discipline without humiliation. Imagine if every Muslim spouse became known for loyalty and respect. Imagine if Muslim communities became known for helping the weak rather than competing for status. Imagine if online Muslim spaces became known for truth and adab rather than insults and endless fighting. People would not only hear about the Sunnah, they would witness its effect. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, changed the world because the message entered character. So ask yourself tonight, if someone studied Islam only by watching how I behave, what would they learn? That question is difficult, but it is necessary. Lesson 3. Mercy is stronger than revenge. One of the most famous words used to describe the mission of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is mercy. But we need to understand what mercy means. Mercy is not a soft decoration added to religion. Mercy is strength under control. Mercy is having the ability to hurt someone and choosing not to when forgiveness is better. Mercy is seeing the weakness of another person and not exploiting it. Mercy is correcting without humiliating. Mercy is teaching without crushing. Mercy is giving people a path back. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, lived in a world where revenge was normal. Tribal honor could keep bloodshed alive for generations. One killing led to another, which led to another, until people inherited conflicts they did not even start. Islam came and disciplined revenge with justice and opened the door to forgiveness. This was revolutionary, and human beings still need this lesson. Look at how we live today. One person insults us, and we immediately want to destroy their reputation. Someone makes one mistake, and we want the whole world to know. A relative says something hurtful, and we do not speak to them for 10 years. A spouse makes an error, and we bring it up in every argument for the next 15 years. Someone apologizes, but we keep them permanently trapped inside the worst thing they ever did. This is not spiritual strength. Often it is wounded ego. The Prophet's mercy teaches us that not every injury needs a lifelong war. Think of Taif. He went there calling people to Allah. He was rejected in an extremely painful way. He was mocked and physically attacked until he was bleeding. That moment could have produced rage. But the prophetic response was not simply, destroy them all. That is a lesson we should sit with. Many of us lose our manners because someone sent us a rude message. He was physically harmed while carrying the message of Allah, yet he did not allow pain to turn his heart into a machine of revenge. Do you see the gap between his character and ours? This does not mean we become passive in the face of oppression. Islam permits justice. Islam does not command the oppressed person to pretend harm did not happen. But mercy asks a deeper question. What outcome is most beloved to Allah? Sometimes justice is needed to stop harm. Sometimes forgiveness produces a greater good. Sometimes distance is wise. Sometimes reconciliation is beautiful. Sometimes silence prevents a bigger evil. Sometimes speaking firmly protects others. Mercy is not weakness because mercy requires wisdom. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, also showed mercy to children. to the poor, to servants, to the elderly, to people who came with ignorance, and even to animals. His mercy was not selective. Many people are merciful only to those they like. That is easy. The test is your behavior toward the person who cannot benefit you. How do you treat the cleaner? How do you speak to a waiter? How do you respond to someone who has less education than you? How do you treat a child who is noisy? How do you treat an elderly parent who repeats the same story? How do you treat someone when you have power over them? That is where mercy is measured. If you are kind to the powerful but harsh to the weak, that is not mercy. That is strategy. The Prophet's mercy was not strategic. It was rooted in revelation and character. And there is another side to mercy that Muslims often forget. Be merciful in the way you advise. Some people give religious advice as though they enjoy announcing other people's failures. They say, I am only speaking the truth. Yes, but truth has manners. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, knew how to correct people without always destroying their dignity. There are times when public wrong requires public clarification, but not every mistake needs public humiliation. Ask yourself before speaking, am I trying to guide this person or defeat them? Am I trying to protect the truth or display myself? Will my words open their heart or only satisfy my anger? The goal of da'wah is not to win an argument and lose a person. This is a powerful lesson for social media. We live in an age where outrage is rewarded. The angrier you sound, the more people may watch. The harsher your words, the more your supporters may cheer. But the believer cannot let an algorithm train their character. Your religion is not content. Your brother's mistake is not entertainment. Your sister's weakness is not a chance to become famous. Someone's sin is not an excuse for you to become arrogant. Mercy means remembering that guidance belongs to Allah. You and I are also surviving because of Allah's mercy. If Allah exposed every hidden sin we committed, who would stand with dignity? If Allah dealt with us only according to what we deserved, where would we be? If Allah never gave us another chance after our worst moment, what hope would we have? So when you are merciful to others, you are not pretending their wrong is right. You are remembering your own need for mercy. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, taught us to become people who leave doors open for repentance. Some families do the opposite. A person makes a mistake at age 20, and at age 40 the family still introduces them through that mistake. You remember what he did. You remember how she was. They never allow change. That is not healthy. If Allah accepts tawbah, who are you to tell a person they are forever chained to their past? Yes, trust may take time to rebuild. Yes, consequences can remain. But do not make yourself the god of someone's permanent condemnation. Mercy allows people to become better. And maybe you need to apply that lesson to yourself too. Some of you have repented, but you keep reopening your own case. You keep telling yourself, I am filthy, I am finished, Allah will never want me. That is not humility. That can become despair. The message of the Prophet teaches hope in Allah. You are not allowed to become arrogant because you did good, and you are not allowed to despair because you did wrong. Return to Allah. That is the balance. So if Rabiul Awal reminds you of Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, let it also remind you to remove unnecessary revenge from your heart. There are people you may never trust again. Fine. There are people you may need distance from. Fine. There are injustices that need accountability. Fine. But do not carry poison in your chest for the rest of your life. Your heart was created to know Allah, not to become a storage room for old arguments. Mercy is not forgetting everything. Mercy is refusing to let hatred become your identity. That is strength. Lesson 4. The Prophet changed society by changing people from the inside. When people talk about changing the world, they often imagine politics, institutions, technology, money, movements, slogans, and systems. All of these can matter, but the prophetic method teaches something deeper. Society changes when human beings change. The Quran did not simply give rules to a broken society. It rebuilt the hearts of the people who would carry those rules. That is why the first generation was so powerful. They did not only receive new laws, they received a new understanding of Allah, a new understanding of themselves, and a new understanding of the hereafter. Imagine a man who believes this life is everything. He may lie, cheat, oppress, and grab whatever he can, because he thinks there is no final accounting. Now imagine that same man becomes certain that he will stand before Allah and answer for every injustice. His behavior changes because his inner world changed. This is what revelation did. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, taught people that Allah sees them even when people do not. That one belief creates integrity. If you only behave well when cameras are watching, you have public relations, not taqwa. Taqwa is when you are alone and still say, Allah sees me. Taqwa is when you could cheat and get away with it, but you do not. Taqwa is when you could send the message you should not send, but you stop. Taqwa is when you could take money that is not truly yours, but you leave it. Taqwa is when no human being would know, but you remember Allah. That is inner transformation. The Prophet created a community in which people began to police themselves through consciousness of Allah. Now compare that with our world. We often want external change without internal change. We want a good marriage, but we do not want to control our ego. We want righteous children, but we do not want to model righteousness. We want honest leaders, but we lie in small transactions. We want corruption to end, but we are comfortable with corruption when it benefits us. We want unity in the ummah, but we cannot forgive our own cousin. We want people to respect Islam, but we do not respect the rights of others. We keep asking the world to improve while refusing to improve ourselves. The Prophet's life tells you, start with the heart, then the behavior, then the home, then the community. This is not an excuse to ignore public injustice. It is a warning that public reform without private reform becomes hypocrisy. A society cannot be healthy if individuals are spiritually rotten. And this is one reason the Quran spent so much time building belief before many detailed legal commands came. People needed to know who Allah is. They needed to know what the hereafter is. They needed to know what accountability means. They needed to know what sincerity means. Then when the command came, the heart was ready to say, we hear and we obey. Today we often reverse the process. We want people to obey without helping them love Allah. We want children to practice without teaching meaning. We want young people to follow rules without answering their questions. We shout haram at everything, but fail to show them the beauty of obedience. The prophetic method was deeper. Teach the heart why. Why do we pray? Because we belong to Allah. Why do we lower our gaze? Because dignity matters and Allah sees us. Why do we avoid backbiting? Because another Muslim's honor matters. Why do we give charity? Because wealth is a trust. Why do we forgive? Because we hope Allah forgives us. Why do we stay honest? Because provision is from Allah, not from deception. When meaning enters worship, worship becomes alive. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, transformed people who then transformed society. Look at how Islam changed attitudes toward women, orphans, the poor, slaves, neighbors, travelers, debtors, and the vulnerable. These changes were not random social policies. They were connected to a worldview. Every human being is a creation of Allah, and the powerful will answer for how they treated the weak. That principle is still needed today. Some people become religious and think religion gives them power over others. A husband thinks Islam exists to give him rights but forgets his responsibilities. A parent thinks Islam gives them authority but forgets mercy. A teacher thinks knowledge makes them superior to students. A community leader thinks service means status. Number. The prophetic model turns authority into responsibility. The more power you have, the more questions you will answer. That should frighten any sensible person. If Allah places 10 people under your care, that is not 10 people to control. That is 10 trusts. If Allah gives you children, they are a trust. If Allah gives you employees, they are a trust. If Allah gives you followers, they are a trust. If Allah gives you knowledge, it is a trust. If Allah gives you wealth, it is a trust. The Prophet's world-changing leadership began with accountability to Allah. And this is where personal reform becomes practical. You do not need to wait for a global movement to begin living the Sunnah. You can change your home today. You can stop shouting. You can apologize. You can return money you owe. You can call your mother. You can speak respectfully to your father. You can stop mocking your spouse. You can pray on time. You can stop gossiping about a relative. You can give quietly to someone in need. You can end a dishonest business practice. You can forgive a mistake. You can seek knowledge instead of arguing from ignorance. These actions may seem small, but history is built from small acts repeated by millions of people. The first Muslims were not born as saints. They were transformed through revelation, companionship, struggle, repentance, and practice. So do not say, "I am just like this." That sentence is one of Shaitan's favorite prisons. I have always been angry. I have always been jealous. I have always been lazy. I have always been harsh. I have always had this habit. So what? Islam came to transform you, not to decorate your personality. You are allowed to change. In fact, you are required to struggle toward better. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, did not bring a message that said, "Stay exactly as you are and just add religious words." He brought a message that reforms the human being. So this Rabiul Awal, do not only ask, how did the Prophet change the world? Ask, what part of me has his message still not changed? That is the uncomfortable question. Maybe you have been Muslim for 30 years, but your tongue is still uncontrolled. Maybe you pray, but your business is still dishonest. Maybe you know Quran, but pride destroys your relationships. Maybe you attend lectures, but your family does not feel safe around your temper. Do not run from the question. The purpose is not to shame you. The purpose is to wake you up. The door of change is still open. Lesson 5. Hardship does not mean Allah has abandoned you. One of the most dangerous misunderstandings in religion is the idea that if Allah loves you, life will become easy. The life of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, destroys that illusion. He was the beloved messenger of Allah, yet he suffered. He lost his parents early in life. He buried children. He faced ridicule. He was called a liar by people who had known his honesty. He was boycotted. He experienced hunger. He was driven from his home. He was attacked. He lost companions. He faced military threats. He saw people he loved suffer. If hardship meant Allah had abandoned someone, how could the messenger have faced so much hardship? This is a lesson Muslims desperately need. Sometimes you make dua and the problem remains. Sometimes you try to do the right thing and people still misunderstand you. Sometimes you become closer to Allah and then a test becomes heavier. Sometimes you leave haram and your finances become tight. Sometimes you pray for someone and they still die. Sometimes you ask Allah to repair a relationship and it still ends. And Shaitan whispers, maybe Allah does not care about you. Look at the life of the Prophet. Difficulty is not proof of abandonment. Sometimes difficulty is the road through which Allah raises you, cleans you, trains you, redirects you, protects you, or prepares you. We do not always know which one, but the believer learns not to measure Allah's love by temporary comfort. This is very important because modern life has trained us to think comfort equals success. If something hurts, we assume it is bad. If something is difficult, we assume we are on the wrong path. If something takes time, we assume Allah did not answer. Some of the most important things in the Prophet's life came through long difficulty. The years in Mecca were not easy. The believers were weak in worldly terms. Yet those years built faith so strong that later it carried a civilization. What looks like delay may be training. Some of you are asking Allah for a responsibility your current character cannot carry. You want wealth, but you have not learned discipline. You want marriage, but you have not learned emotional maturity. You want leadership, but you have not learned humility. You want influence, but you have not learned sincerity. You want success, but you have not learned how to survive failure. Maybe the waiting is part of the preparation. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, teaches us sabr. But sabr is often misunderstood as doing nothing. Patience is not laziness. Patience is continuing to obey Allah while your emotions are screaming. Patience is not giving up prayer because your dua has not been answered in the way you expected. Patience is not turning to haram because halal is taking longer. Patience is not becoming cruel because someone was cruel to you. Patience is continuing to move in the right direction when results are slow. That is strength. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, made plans. He took precautions. He migrated. He consulted people. He organized. He acted. Then he relied on Allah. Tawakkul is not carelessness. Some people say, I trust Allah, but they do not prepare. That is not the Sunnah. Tie the camel and trust Allah. As the well-known meaning teaches. Apply for the job and trust Allah. Study and trust Allah. See the doctor and trust Allah. Make a budget and trust Allah. Have the difficult conversation and trust Allah. Seek counsel and trust Allah. Take the means that are halal, then leave the outcome to Allah. That is balanced faith. Another lesson from the Prophet's hardship is that sadness is not a sin. The Prophet experienced grief. Islam does not command you to become emotionally numb. You are allowed to cry. You are allowed to miss someone. You are allowed to feel tired. You are allowed to be hurt. The question is, where does your pain take you? Does it take you away from Allah, or does it drive you toward Him? That is the spiritual battle. Some of the deepest du'as are made by broken hearts. Not because brokenness is beautiful by itself, but because when worldly supports disappear, a believer sometimes discovers how close Allah has always been. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, taught people to turn to Allah during hardship, not only during ease. We often remember Allah when the doctor calls. We remember Allah when the business fails. We remember Allah when the marriage is in danger. We remember Allah when someone dies. Then when life becomes comfortable again, we become distracted. The prophetic life teaches consistency. Allah is your Lord in difficulty and in ease. Do not wait for the emergency to build the relationship. And when hardship comes, be careful of comparison. You look at someone else and say, their life is easy. Why is mine difficult? You do not know their test. Social media shows the front door of someone's life, not the rooms inside. You see a smiling photo. You do not see the anxiety. You see the wedding. You do not see the arguments. You see the car. You do not see the debt. You see the success. You do not see the nights of fear. You see the children. You do not know the struggle behind them. Stop measuring Allah's favor by someone else's visible life. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, had moments of victory and moments of loss. Both were part of his mission. Faith is not proved only when you say, Alhamdulillah, after receiving what you wanted. Faith is proved when you can still say, Allah is my Lord, when you do not understand what He is doing. That is deeper. So if you are listening while carrying something heavy, do not use your pain as evidence that Allah forgot you. Use the life of the Prophet as a correction. The road can be hard and still be blessed. The night can be dark and still lead to dawn. The dua can feel delayed and still be heard. The loss can hurt and still contain wisdom you may only understand later. Keep walking. Lesson 6. Leadership means service, justice, and humility. Today, when people hear the word leader, they often imagine status, a large office, people standing when you enter, a microphone, a title, special treatment, everyone obeying you. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, showed a completely different model. He became the leader of a growing community, yet he remained accessible. He did not build his identity around luxury. He did not live like a king who needed the people to constantly feel small in his presence. This is one of the most powerful parts of his life. He had authority without becoming intoxicated by authority. That is rare. Power reveals people. Some people are humble because they have no choice. Give them power and you discover what was hiding. They start speaking down to others. They stop listening. They expect special treatment. They become surrounded only by people who agree with them. They use religion, money, age, or position to silence everyone else. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, teaches the opposite. Leadership is amana, a trust. The more people Allah places under your care, the more careful you should become. This lesson is not only for presidents and scholars. If you are a father, you are a leader in your home. If you are a mother, you carry leadership in your responsibilities. If you manage employees, you are a leader. If you teach students, you are a leader. If you are older siblings helping raise younger ones, you carry influence. If people listen to you online, you carry responsibility. Leadership means people may be affected by your decisions. So leadership needs justice. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, did not teach justice only when it benefited Muslims emotionally. Justice is a principle. The Quran commands believers to stand firmly for justice, even when it is against themselves or those close to them. Imagine if we lived that. Family disputes would change, business disputes would change, community politics would change, religious disagreements would change, but our ego hates justice when justice costs us something. We love justice when we are the victim. We become philosophers when we are the one accused. Suddenly we say, there are two sides. Of course there can be two sides. But notice how quickly we demand mercy for ourselves and justice for everyone else. The prophetic model disciplines this hypocrisy. If your son is wrong, he is wrong. If your friend is wrong, he is wrong. If your political side is wrong, wrong is still wrong. If someone you dislike speaks truth, the truth does not become false because you dislike the speaker. Justice must be bigger than loyalty to ego. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, also consulted his companions. Think about that. A messenger receiving revelation still taught the community the value of consultation in worldly affairs. What does that say about the manager who thinks no employee can advise him? What does that say about the father who thinks his adult children must never question his decision? What does that say about the community leader who treats every suggestion as rebellion? Listening does not make you weak. Sometimes the strongest leader is the one who can hear something they do not enjoy hearing. Prophetic leadership also includes admitting human reality. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, did not present himself as a god. He was a human messenger. He ate, slept, walked, married, grieved, smiled, traveled, and dealt with ordinary human life. This makes his example practical. He showed that spirituality does not require escaping humanity. You can worship Allah while running a home. You can remember Allah while earning a living. You can show character in marriage. You can show faith in business. You can show humility in leadership. You can show mercy in discipline. Religion enters ordinary life. That is leadership too, living the values you ask others to live. Some parents demand prayer from children, while the children rarely see them pray on time. Some managers demand honesty while they lie to clients. Some community leaders demand unity, while privately creating division. Some teachers demand respect but humiliate students. People eventually notice the gap. The Prophet's authority was strengthened by consistency between message and character. And notice his humility in victory. Many people appear humble before success because they need help. The real test is what happens when you no longer need approval. When Makkah was conquered, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, entered in humility. Imagine returning to the city that expelled you. Imagine standing with power over people who once harmed you. The ego would say, now they will see. But the prophetic heart does not need to perform revenge to feel powerful. That is leadership. Can you remain humble when Allah gives you what you prayed for? Can you remain kind when you become rich? Can you remain accessible when you become important? Can you remember the people who helped you before you became successful? Can you say, I do not know, when you do not know? Can you apologize when you are wrong? These are leadership questions. And every one of us should ask them. Because one day, someone younger will copy you. Your child is watching how you speak to your spouse. Your employee is watching how you treat the weak. Your student is watching how you respond when corrected. Your younger sibling is watching what you do when angry. You are teaching even when you are silent. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, understood the weight of example. So if you want to honor him, become the kind of person whose influence makes other people better. Not more afraid, not more dependent on you, not more impressed by you. Better. That is leadership. Lesson 7. Loving the Prophet means following his message. After Rabiul Awal ends. This is perhaps the most important lesson. Love is easy to claim. Every Muslim feels something when the name of Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is mentioned. We send blessings upon him. We speak about his life with emotion. We teach our children his name. We feel honored to be from his ummah. But love in Islam is not only a feeling. Love produces obedience. If someone says, I love the Prophet, but they have no interest in his teachings, something is missing. If we celebrate his memory, but ignore his sunnah in our character, something is missing. If we speak loudly about love, but lie, cheat, backbite, insult, abuse, and neglect prayer, then our claim needs examination. The Quran connects love of Allah with following the Messenger. That makes the matter practical. You do not prove love only through words. You prove it through direction. Where is your life going? Toward his example or away from it? And be careful here. Following the Prophet does not mean reducing the Sunnah to appearance alone. Appearance matters where the Sunnah teaches it. But the Sunnah is bigger than a look. The Sunnah is truthfulness. The Sunnah is keeping promises. The Sunnah is mercy. The Sunnah is modesty. The Sunnah is prayer. The Sunnah is generosity. The Sunnah is controlling anger. The Sunnah is honoring parents. The Sunnah is good treatment of spouses. The Sunnah is caring for neighbors. The Sunnah is helping the poor. The Sunnah is humility. The Sunnah is courage. The Sunnah is justice. The Sunnah is remembrance of Allah. Do not take one part and ignore the rest. Some people become very strict about small visible matters while being careless with major character failures. A man may correct the length of someone's clothing while cheating in business. A person may argue for hours about a secondary issue while not speaking to their own brother for years. A person may post hundreds of Islamic reminders while humiliating their spouse. This is imbalance. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was a complete example, and that is why his life remains relevant. He teaches you how to deal with success and failure, how to deal with friends and enemies, how to deal with family and strangers, how to deal with wealth and poverty, how to deal with worship and worldly responsibility, how to deal with grief and joy, how to deal with disagreement, how to deal with disagreement. So when Rabiul Awal comes, the best question is not only what happened in this month. The better question is, what will change in me because I remembered him? Will your fajr improve? Will your tongue improve? Will your business become cleaner? Will you apologize to someone? Will you study the Seerah? Will you stop one habit you know is wrong? Will you begin sending more blessings upon the Prophet with understanding? Will you become more patient with your family? Will you give something in charity? Will you forgive someone you have been punishing for too long? Will you learn one sunnah and live it consistently? This is how memory becomes worship. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, did not come so that 1 month would be emotionally powerful and the other 11 months would remain unchanged. His message is for every day. You do not need to wait for Rabiul Awal to study his life. You do not need to wait for a special gathering to send blessings upon him. You do not need to wait for a lecture to practice his character. You do not need to wait for Ramadan to repair your relationship with Allah. Start now. And let me say something important. Muslims differ over some practices associated with Rabiul Awal. These disagreements are not new. Scholars have discussed them for generations. Do not allow a month connected in people's hearts with the Messenger to become a season of insulting other Muslims. If you believe a practice is incorrect, explain with knowledge and manners. If someone disagrees with you, do not immediately question their love for the Prophet. If you follow a scholarly position, do so with humility. Do not make your opinion an excuse to become arrogant. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, taught adab. There is no victory in defending the Sunnah while destroying prophetic character. Truth matters, evidence matters, scholarship matters, and manners matter. The Ummah has enough division. Let your love for the Prophet make you more disciplined in disagreement. Because one of the saddest things is when people argue about honoring the Prophet while speaking in a way the Prophet would never approve. So keep the main thing the main thing. Allah sent Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, with guidance. Learn that guidance, live that guidance, teach that guidance with wisdom. Protect your heart from pride, protect your tongue from cruelty, protect your worship from showing off, protect your relationships from injustice. And remember that the Prophet's life is important not because history decided to admire him. His life is important because Allah chose him as the final messenger. He carried revelation. He taught the Quran. He explained worship. He built a community. He modeled character. He endured hardship. He forgave when forgiveness was stronger. He fought when justice required it. He lived simply. He died leaving a message that crossed languages, continents, empires, and centuries. And here you are today, more than 14 centuries later, saying his name. Think about that. How many kings have been forgotten? How many empires disappeared? How many celebrities were famous for 10 years and then vanished from memory? How many powerful men had statues built for them and still became irrelevant? But the name Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, is mentioned every day across the earth. In the adhan, in the prayer, in homes, in masajid, in classrooms, in du'as, in books, on the tongues of children and elderly people. That is not ordinary fame. But do not be satisfied with mentioning his name. Follow the message. One day you and I will leave this world. Our followers will not matter. Our money will not matter. Our titles will not matter. Our arguments will not matter. Our buildings will remain behind. What will matter is whether we met Allah with faith and obedience. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, showed the road. So walk it. When you fall, repent. When you become weak, return. When you become confused, learn. When you become angry, control yourself. When you are wrong, admit it. When someone needs mercy, remember how much mercy you need from Allah. When Allah gives you success, stay humble. When Allah tests you, stay connected. When people praise you, do not become intoxicated. When people criticize you, do not lose yourself. When you love the Prophet, translate that love into action. This is how Rabiul Awal can change your year. Not because one date has magic in it, but because remembrance can awaken a sleeping heart. And perhaps that is the most powerful way to understand the phrase, the day that changed the world forever. The world did not change simply because a child was born in Mecca. The world changed because Allah chose that child to become His messenger. The world changed when revelation came. The world changed when La ilaha illallah entered hearts. The world changed when Bilal stood with dignity. The world changed when enemies became brothers. The world changed when the weak were given rights. The world changed when a society learned that lineage, race, and wealth do not determine worth before Allah. The world changed when mercy became strength. The world changed when knowledge became worship. The world changed when the Quran became guidance for humanity. And the question now is not whether Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, changed history. He did. The question is whether his message is changing you. Because you can admire the Prophet and remain the same. You can listen to Seerah lectures and remain the same. You can post quotes and remain the same. You can attend gatherings and remain the same. Or you can decide that today, something begins. One prayer on time, one sin abandoned, one relationship repaired, one chapter of Seerah studied, one apology given, one act of charity, one habit of anger challenged, One dishonest practice ended. One daily moment of salawat with attention and love. Small beginnings can become large transformations. The first revelation began in a cave. Do not underestimate what Allah can build from a sincere beginning. May Allah increase our love for His Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, in a way that increases our obedience to Allah. May Allah grant us the ability to learn His Sunnah, follow His character, and carry His message with wisdom. May Allah forgive our shortcomings, correct our hearts, protect us from arrogance, and make us people of mercy, justice, truthfulness, patience, and sincere worship. May Allah gather us with the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, in the hereafter, not merely because we claim to love him, but because we tried to walk the path he showed us. And may our remembrance of him never end when Rabiul Awal ends. Let it continue in our prayers. Let it continue in our homes. Let it continue in our character. Let it continue in the way we treat people. Let it continue in the way we worship Allah. Because the most important life in human history is not a life we were meant only to admire. It is a life we were meant to learn from.